The movie begins with JJ, a robust and experienced guy who works as a CIA agent, and when he's not on duty, he serves as the bodyguard for important figures like the young rising pop star, Ryan. The youngster tries so hard to treat him well that he ends up causing the opposite effect. Although JJ is forced to pretend otherwise when the flight attendant hands him a glass of water, he detects something off about the taste and spits the water back out through a little trick. He notices it was poisoned. Without further ado, he has to fake it, and then the flight attendant reveals herself as an assassin and throws a knife at him. JJ dodges it easily, and the knife ends up in the poor Ryan's shoulder. Even though our protagonist is a mountain of muscle, he can't manage to take the assassin down. At the same time, Sophie, a teenager who grew up alongside JJ and had many adventures with him, approaches the plane in a flying suit. Seeing the fight, she detonates a certain part of the fuselage, causing JJ, Ryan, and the assassin to be blown out into the air. The young woman saves the first two while asking JJ for permission to go to the school dance with Ryan. When he reminds her that she has training, she doesn't hesitate to drop him, leaving her alone with Ryan. Ryan laments that he can't go with her because he already promised to go with Olivia Rodrigo. Well, goodbye, Ryan. Right then, Sophie wakes up in her room, revealing that it was all just a dream. Of course, JJ is still there as her stepfather, after having married her mother, Kate. If you want to know how that happened, check out the first movie and come back to this video. But you can perfectly well keep on watching. Despite everything they've been through, Sophie still doesn't consider JJ her father. From afar, Kate suggests that he stop being so strict with her and truly listen to what she wants. Besides, Sophie is a teenager. This dilemma also haunts JJ at work, where his colleagues, the analysts Bobby and Agent Kennelly, start noticing his change in attitude. Beyond that, our protagonist focuses on his job, supervising Agent Christina's mission. She has managed to infiltrate a secret Russian base and steal a USB drive containing the parameters of illegal weapons around the world. Soon after, an Austrian mercenary known as Kran is alerted to the theft and immediately gets to work arming himself. Back at CIA headquarters, Director David Kim informs JG that at the end of the Cold War, the KGB hid at least 100 mini-nuclear bombs in remote locations around the world in case another conflict broke out. It appears Christina obtained that information, but David would like JJ to be the one to find the bombs. JJ flatly refuses, recalling he left fieldwork for his family obligations. Disappointed, his boss respects his decision. Meanwhile, at the high school, Sophie tries to grab Ryan's attention without much luck, though she remains hopeful he'll give her a chance. She turns to her best friend, Colin, who encourages her to invite Ryan to the school dance. As soon as she walks away, Colin drops his forced smile and shows that he has feelings for his best friend, a classic trope. Back to the spy storyline, Kran surprises Christina in her hotel room and forces her at gunpoint to hand over the flash drive. Although she cooperates, he does not hesitate to pull the trigger. Elsewhere, JJ supervises Sophie's physical training, which is quite tough because she wants to become a CIA agent. At least that's what he thought. But she makes it clear that her priorities have changed. When JJ tries to give her another plan, Sophie gets the message that her school choir has made it into the top 5, earning them a trip to Italy. Hearing this, JJ volunteers to chaperone the group. Almost immediately after they leave school, he starts embarrassing Sophie by addressing her classmates with the seriousness of an assigned mission. But nothing helps lighten the mood like his homemade cookies. Speaking of out-of-place parents, David forces his son Colin to say goodbye with kisses. And if you're wondering why David is dressed like a nurse, it's because his son still doesn't know he's the director of the CIA. Once in Italy, JJ self-declares himself the student's tour guide, though they pay him no attention whatsoever. He also gives his daughter what she's always wanted, a cell phone, but not just any phone. It's a disposable, spy-style phone. On the first night, JJ does room checks and finds all the kids in one room, throwing a party with alcohol included. However, when the principal, Nancy, walks in, she finds them singing under JJ's supervision, saved by the bell. Still, Sophie is upset with him for interrupting her party just when she was about to kiss Ryan during Spin the Bottle. The next day, the kids present a choir performance at a local venue, completing their first stop with Florence as the next destination. Sophie convinces Ryan and Colin to go out partying there. As the three talk over their plan, they have no idea someone is watching them. Cran. During the trip, Sophie and Ryan keep texting nonstop, irritating JJ and making Colin melancholy. Once night falls, Sophie sneaks out of the hotel with her friends, managing to slip past JJ's obstacles, or so they thought, because the big guy intercepts them at the exit. Nevertheless, seeing Sophie's disappointment, he decides to give them a few minutes to enjoy themselves in the city. Colin goes along up to a point, but his friend asks him to leave them alone. From a distance, Colin guides her with some Italian phrases when suddenly, a van appears out of nowhere and snatches Colin. Sophie spots them out of the corner of her eye and takes off in pursuit on a stolen bike. JJ is also on alert, but at every corner he turns, he steps on local crafts. Sophie keeps pedaling until she almost collides at an intersection, running into JJ again. Unfortunately, they've lost sight of the van. Afterward, the kidnappers call David and make it clear he must come see them in Rome if he doesn't want his son to pay the price. Meanwhile, Sophie managed to snap a photo of the van, and in the side mirror, you can see the driver's face. JJ recognizes him as Kran, a former comrade in arms who ended up selling him and his squad out to a Colombian cartel. JJ was the only survivor of that ambush. The next day, both of them watch from afar as David arrives at the Roman Colosseum, following the kidnappers' instructions. After finding a hidden box, he meets with JJ and Sophie. Once there, he's quite angry with the agent, since he had entrusted him with his son's protection. At that moment, the driver, the very same Bobby, adds that the JJ from before would never have failed like that. In the box, David finds a cell phone with a single audio clip from the kidnappers telling him to obtain the activation codes for the mini-bombs from NATO. Only someone of David's rank can enter a NATO base. The catch is, they still have to do this under the radar. Alerting the authorities would also alert the kidnappers. Thanks to his position, David helps the team enter the NATO military base, where he and JJ distract the soldiers, while Sophie and Bobby slip into the server room and start downloading the activation codes. Because David owes a favor to the base captain, he convinces JJ to participate in a local boxing tournament. Despite his formidable physique, years away from the field have left him pretty rusty, so he gets knocked out of the ring. At least he gave Sophie and Bobby time to get out with the codes. Before long, Kennelly and the other CIA agents learn about this, branding David and the others as traitors for stealing nuclear codes. Undeterred, David and JJ arrive at the meeting place set by the kidnappers, while Bobby and Sophie keep watch from a distance. At some point, Sophie realizes it's a trap, but it's already too late. When they come to, JJ and David find themselves with their hands tied in an abandoned warehouse at the mercy of Cran and his mysterious boss, none other than Nancy. She says she infiltrated their world as a simple school principal. She also leaked the info about the bombs and used Christina to her advantage. Having done that, she arranged a student trip to Italy. The rest is history. Because David's son is at risk, he doesn't hesitate to hand over the codes. Big mistake, as Nancy immediately orders them to get rid of Colin, arguing that she kept her promise not to kill him. Technically speaking, that's Cran's job. As for JJ, Nancy injects him with a poison that will contract his muscles until it kills him, then leaves confidently with her henchmen. With great difficulty, the protagonist frees himself from the handcuffs and tries to reach his phone, despite losing strength. Sophie manages to track him using her cell phone, and Bobby administers him a shot of adrenaline, countering the poison's effect. But it's not time to celebrate yet, since David is still in Nancy's clutches and Colin is about to be executed. With JJ weakened, he decides to give Sophie a vote of confidence at the wheel. At first it doesn't go well, but little by little she gets it right. Meanwhile, Bobby locates Cran's car via municipal security cameras. The assassin is heading to the house where Colin is being held. Fortunately, the kid frees himself from his restraints on his own. When Cran shows up, Colin tries to hide in a vast sunflower field. In this cat-and-mouse game, the mouse ends up crossing paths with the cat, but just then a bull appears to save the day. And by bull, I mean JJ. Even though he's still weak, he can't fight Cran on equal footing, and it's not like Sophie and Bobby help much with their sniper rifle. At least they succeed in scaring Cran off, leaving behind his phone. With Colin safe, Sophie confesses that her father is actually the director of the CIA and that he has just turned himself in to the enemy to rescue him. On another front, Nancy and her henchmen get their hands on the first mini-nuke hidden in a church. Sensing David's concerns, Nancy reveals she belongs to a very powerful organization whose bank accounts were frozen by the United States and its allies. Nancy's husband self-eliminates. Back with JJ, he notices the interaction between his daughter and Colin. Then he points out to Sophie that despite her training, she can't see the obvious, that her friend is in love with her. Through Cran's phone, the team learns the terrorists plan to detonate the warhead in Rome's financial district. Under JJ's direction, the bomb squad only finds a decoy device, serving as a smokescreen. After analyzing the situation, the protagonist deduces the real target is the Vatican, where the student choir is currently performing with the bomb in place. Nancy addresses the world leaders, demanding $50 billion in less than 30 minutes, or else she will detonate every one of the mini-nukes around the globe. Trying to take the terrorists by surprise, JJ and Bobby end up being the ones surprised. Cran doesn't miss the opportunity for a second round with the protagonist. He even mentions that he broke into JJ's house and killed his favorite fish. Filled with rage, JJ apologizes to God for what he's about to do. Give Cran and his men a legendary beating. Nancy, for her part, has no choice but to flee, leaving David behind. Cran also manages to escape because JJ prioritizes disarming the bomb. Conveniently, Bobby points out that the only way to shut it down is with Cran's remote control. JJ finds him in a warehouse where the assassin tries to escape in a van. Luckily, there's a motorcycle just the right size for the agent. Meanwhile, Sophie returns to the student choir and spots a couple of suspicious guards who turn out to be Nancy's henchmen. Colin shows up to help her, even though he can't really fight. Ryan runs off, dismissed, after Sophie does most of the work. Colin lands a final kick that definitely makes a difference. David manages to chase Nancy, but is ambushed by Connelly and another agent. Although David convinces them he's not a traitor, the real threat has just gotten away. JJ tries to catch Cran through the Italian streets, jumping onto the van at the last second. After some struggle, the agent falls to the ground at Cran's mercy. Before he can pull the trigger, he's struck by flying knives courtesy of Sophie. With Cran defeated, JJ dives into the water where the van fell, the remote control inside. It seemed like he wouldn't reach it in time due to his large build, but Sophie appears to give him a hand. After holding his breath so long, JJ blacks out before he can press the remote. However, memories of his daughter prompt him to wake up, deactivating the bomb with 2 seconds to spare. Simultaneously, Colin intercepts Nancy on the street, posing as her son, fed up with her abuse. Thanks to this ruse, civilians themselves punish the woman until David and his agents arrive to take her in. At the end of the battle, JJ prepares to be taken to the hospital, and a paramedic asks if he's family to Sophie. In that moment, she doesn't hesitate to identify him as her father. Making the most of her last days in Italy, Sophie invites Colin to the school dance with a kiss, right in front of their nosy parents. Finally, JJ stops monitoring her by satellite and tells David they should give the kids some space.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.